Welcome to Angry Andy Reviews. I am the angry one himself, and this is my review for Pokémon Detective Pikachu. Now, the premise for Detective Pikachu is it's very simple. Ace Detective Harry Goodman goes missing, and his estranged son takes it upon himself to find out what happened to him. Not before crossing paths with a talking Pikachu, voiced by none other than Ryan Reynolds, a talking Pikachu that only he can understand. And so they team up to uncover the conspiracy that drove towards Harry's disappearance. So, if the premise is that simple, then the execution more than does enough to justify a watch of this film. The film itself is based off of a Detective Pikachu game that was released back in 2016, and the film, however, more than stands up on its own accord, and it's clear as to why so many people are seeing it as probably one of the best video game adaptations ever made, if not the best adaptation ever made. So, there you go. Now, the most jarring aspect of this film, and indeed the most rewarding aspect of this film, is seeing full-size Pokemon on the big screen. It sounds simple, but seeing them out and about and interacting with real-world environments, this has been the stuff of dreams for Pokemon fans for years, and to finally see them lovingly recreated with all these extra animalistic details, truly brings a smile to your face. It's impossible not to, get some kind of enjoyment from seeing them. You don't see every Pokemon that's ever been made. That would be a bit ridiculous. But there are plenty of the classic, favourites, and a few more of the, recent ones on display. A great scene, mild spoilers, a great scene features Blastoise battling Gengar, and Blastoise just looks as cool looking as you would expect, and Gengar, looks, crazy and a bit weird. But Blastoise has these, the cannons, he spins on his shell, firing the cannons, and Gengar's floating around causing chaos, and it looks great. It looks absolutely perfect. The world building itself is solid and gives clear reference to a larger universe, and the previous continuity isn't simply cast aside, from the TV show or the old animated film, which is about 20 years old now. But that continuity is used as a foundation for which this film is built upon. And that in itself is surprisingly but immediately fantastic, because you know what it could mean going forward if indeed they are to create more films, which I'm pretty sure they are going to do after the success of this one. It's not all perfect though, I've got to admit. Some of the CGI does take a bit of a hit, the more that happens on screen. But if this was sort of like a litmus test of what is to come, or what they could potentially do going forward, then it passes the mark, clearly. Pacing initially at the start of the film does feel a little bit awkward to begin with, and it does take a little bit of a while to get going and really go full pelt with the Pokemon lore. I kind of get the feeling that maybe the filmmakers are a bit cautious about how quickly they were going to dive into it, how much emphasis they were going to put on certain things. Who knows? I mean, it doesn't really matter, because what ultimately drives this film forward when it does sag is the wonderfully bizarre vocal performance by Ryan Reynolds. Initially, you think, oh, it shouldn't work, but it does, and it works so perfectly. Reynolds is able to bring, a wit and a charm that somehow manages to enhance that lovable little Pikachu face that everyone knows and loves, that little squeaky tiny voice. It's bizarre, it's really, really bizarre, and I would love to, see and hear if some other actors were, tested for the voice. I'd love to see how, how they fit. Well, obviously they didn't fit, but how they came out, how they sounded, because Ryan Reynolds just is perfect, without question, from the very first line that he speaks. And Detective Pikachu as a character is without a doubt the star of this film. The silliness he brings, the level of awareness he brings to in the entire situations that go on in this film, it's exceptional. The smaller moments that he brings, are just as wonderful. And Ryan Reynolds is magically able to bring down that madcap nature of his own voice to create something that's really, really endearing, and it has the ability to bring tears from its audience. And there was a few in the screening that I saw, there were a few young kids tearing up and crying because the subject matter and what he deals with and what the rest of the characters deal with really, really hits home. Detective Pikachu as a whole film is really wholesome. There's a lot of heartfelt nostalgia, and it relies on the confidence of its own ability to have fun with that wider world of Pokemon, and it's a success because of that. And it should be seen, if not for that alone, but for the sheer fact that if at any point in your life, if you've enjoyed any small moment of Pokemon, then I challenge you to not at least raise some kind of a smile when you see Charizard or Blastoise or Pikachu appear on the screen. It's a really, really lovely film, and I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 purely because how much heartfelt joy you get out of it. Like I said, it does have its flaws, but it's a great film. It's a great film. I'd fully recommend going and seeing it. So that's it for this review. Quite brief. It tends to read a lot longer than it actually is speaking out loud. But I'm going to keep doing reviews like this. Working on writing up my review for John Wick 3, Parabellum. I just watched that earlier today. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. So yeah, I'll be getting on with that review, and I've just got a hold of this, Total War 3 Kingdoms, so I'm going to get that installed and give that a whirl as well. Thank you very much for watching. See you again soon.